In this video, we'll look at how to add and remove questions from an assessment. So if you find an assessment that you want to edit the questions in, then go to the gear icon to the right of that assessment, and then press the questions link. That'll pull open the questions page, which has a few different parts to it. So we'll start at the top. You'll see that there's a questions and assessment portion, which has a table with all of the questions that are currently in the assessment. There's a handful of columns here, like you can order the questions, you can move them around using this drop-down link, a description of the question, you can preview the question by pressing this preview button. It just pulls open a preview window. You can change the question-specific settings, and you can remove the question. So if you maybe didn't want question 3, you could press this remove link. It'll confirm, and then you press OK, and it just drops that right out of the assessment. So pretty easy to remove questions. If you want to remove multiple at once, you just select the boxes over on the left-hand column, and then press the remove button. So one important thing to point out is if a student has already started this given assessment, you cannot remove questions from that assessment. Things are locked in. However, if a student has started the assessment, then all of these remove links will turn into withdraw links. And so you can withdraw questions from an assessment and then give all students full credit for that question if you want, but there's no way to actually take that question out of the assessment. This is just based on how the data is stored in the database. And so if you want to move questions around or change which questions are in assessment, you need to do that before students access the assessment. Now, if you want to add questions to an assessment, you'll go down to the second part of the page that says potential questions. Kind of a lot of buttons here. But let's start with this Select Libraries button. All of the questions are stored in libraries, and this allows you to navigate the libraries you have access to. So maybe we want something from pre-calculus, and maybe we want some questions from sequences, basics, and maybe finite series. So you'd select both of those, and then press Use Libraries. Now, very important, you need to press this search button after selecting the libraries to search through those libraries. So once you do that, it'll pull open, it'll tell you what library you're looking at, and then it'll show you all the available questions within that library. So notice we've got a whole handful of questions here. Again, there are preview buttons that you can press to preview questions. And then when you find one that you want, you can either press Add, the add link, or you can select multiple using these checkboxes. So maybe I select a couple of these, and then once you've selected those, press the Add Using Defaults button. And what that'll do is add those questions to your assessment, shown here, using the defaults for the assessment. Now, one thing to point out is each question you can change the specific settings, and you can do that by pressing this Change link. And so I'm going to do that for one of these things. There's a handful of options, things that you have already probably assigned like default values for in the assessment settings, but the important one is points for this problem. By default, each question is going to be worth 1 point, but some questions are longer than others. So maybe you want to weight something heavier than 1 point because maybe it has 3 important parts to it. If you wanted to do that, you would just put a 3 in that box and then press Save Settings. Now we'll see that that question is now worth 3 points. You'll notice that some of the other questions, if you copied from a template course, already have question weightings in there.